How do you lead a country through its darkest hour when you can barely finish a sentence, and every microphone in the world is waiting? Welcome back for another English movie review lesson. I'm Teacher Teddy, and today, let's talk about the King's Speech. Today's lesson is built around something this film understands better than almost any movie ever made. Register. How English changes its clothes to fit the situation. By the end of this episode, you'll hear the difference between formal and informal English instantly, and know exactly when to use each. The story begins by introducing Prince Albert, Duke of York, known to his family as Bertie, the second son of King George V, standing frozen before a microphone at Wembley Stadium in 1925, as a stammer he has fought since childhood swallows his closing speech in front of thousands. Straight away, the film hands us today's lesson in a pair of names. In public, this man is addressed as Your Royal Highness, the most formal register English has. At home, he is simply Bertie. Register means choosing language to fit the situation. Formal for distance, ceremony, and respect. Informal for closeness and warmth. The whole film lives between those two names. After years of failed treatments, doctors with marbles and cigarettes and theories, Bertie's wife Elizabeth quietly seeks out one more option. Lionel Logue, an Australian speech therapist working from a shabby basement office. A man with unusual methods and absolutely no interest in ceremony. Their first meeting is a duel of registers. A formal English request sounds like, "Might I ask how long this will take?" Or, "Shall we begin?" Lionel's informal Australian warmth answers in the register of, "Let's get started." Might I? Shall we? Formal signals. Let's. Contractions. First names. Informal ones. Neither is wrong. The comedy and the tension come from the mismatch. Lionel insists on total equality inside his consulting room. First names only. His rules, no exceptions, even for a prince. Bertie is offended, resistant, and, despite himself, intrigued, because beneath the games and the gramophone records, Lionel's methods show flickers of something no royal physician has produced. Results. Even greetings split by register. Bertie's world opens conversations with, "How do you do?" So formal, it isn't really a question at all. Lionel's world says, "How's it going?" Or simply, "All right?" A learner who can hear the difference between those two greetings and answer each one correctly has already grasped the heart of register. Listen to how the two men refuse and request. Formal refusal. "I'm afraid that won't be possible." Informal. "No chance." Formal request. "Would you be so kind as to sit down?" Informal. "Take a seat." English stretches or shrinks the same message depending on distance. The more formal the register, the longer and more indirect the sentence tends to grow. Then, history intervenes. King George V dies, and Bertie's elder brother becomes King Edward VIII, A king in love with Wallis Simpson, a twice-divorced American woman he cannot marry and keep the throne. Within the year, Edward abdicates, and the stammering second son who never wanted the crown becomes King George VI. The abdication crisis is also a register crisis. Official proclamations announce that the king has renounced the throne. Renounced, a formal, Latin-flavored verb. Around the palace, in plain informal English, people simply say he has given it up. English very often pairs a formal single verb, renounce, commence, endeavor, with an informal phrasal verb, give up, start, try. Choosing between them is register in action. The new king now faces the microphone, not as a duke closing an exhibition, but as the voice of an empire sliding toward war. And the film builds towards September 1939, when Britain declares war on Germany, and George VI must deliver a live radio address to the entire world. A wartime address also shows formal registers' grammar habits. The passive voice, a state of war has been declared, rather than we have declared war, which we covered back in our The Dark Knight lesson, and full forms instead of contractions. We shall and it is, never we'll and it's. Formality prefers distance even inside the sentence. Passives, full forms, careful words. Consider what that broadcast demands. The most formal register of all. Measured, dignified, ceremonial. Delivered by a man who speaks most freely in the least formal register there is. Because Lionel has discovered something remarkable. Bertie's stammer loosens when formality falls away. When he sings his words, when he swears like a sailor, when he speaks as Bertie rather than as His Majesty. Informal register isn't lazy English. In this film, it's medicine. That discovery produces the film's most famous exchange. Pushed to his limit, Bertie finally roars, "Because I have a voice." And Lionel answers, quietly, "Yes, you do." Beyond the drama, there's an idiom here worth keeping. In English, to have a voice means far more than making sound. It means having the right to speak and be heard, to matter. Workers want a voice at work. Citizens want a voice in decisions. And notice Lionel's reply. 3 short, informal words. No ceremony at all. Carrying more weight than any proclamation in the film. How that final broadcast goes, the room, the silences, what Lionel does, and what it costs and gives both men, I'll leave for you to watch, though history itself tells you the headline. What the film saves for you is everything the history books leave out. The friendship, fought for line by line, that made the speech possible. I won't spoil, either, the quieter thread running underneath. What Bertie's stammer is really made of, the childhood that shaped it, and the confession scenes where the film lets its most formal character finally speak informally about himself. Those are the scenes that won the awards, and they deserve to be met fresh. One last register signal to collect. How each register says sorry. Formal English apologizes at length. I do apologize for the inconvenience. Informal English needs 2 extra words. Sorry about that. Apologies, greetings, requests, refusals. Every everyday act of speech has a formal and an informal costume, and this film is a 2-hour wardrobe tour. Now, let's talk about how this story is told. The comparison most critics reached for is the classic British 2 men in a room drama. Reviewers marveled that a film built almost entirely on conversations between a king and his therapist plays, in one critic's framing, as tensely as a boxing match. Later films picked up the torch in the other direction. Darkest Hour, covering the war years from Churchill's side, is now routinely discussed as this film's natural companion piece, and George VI appears there too. It's worth knowing the story behind the story as well. Screenwriter David Seidler grew up with a stammer himself, listened to George VI's wartime broadcasts as a boy for courage, and waited decades at the Queen Mother's request before telling this story. Critics often point to that lived experience as the reason the film treats the stammer with such patience and zero mockery. This episode also has 5 bonus vocabulary words to review, pulled from how critics have actually described this film. Our first word is eloquent. Eloquent describes speech that is fluent, powerful, and persuasive. The film asks what eloquence really is, and whether courage might matter more. Our second word is stammer. A stammer is a speech difficulty that interrupts words with pauses and repeated sounds. Bertie's stammer, and his fight with it, is the heart of the entire story. British English says stammer. American English more often says stutter. A register-free transatlantic pair as a bonus. Our third word is dignified. Dignified describes behavior that is calm, serious, and worthy of respect. Even at his most afraid, Bertie remains achingly dignified. Our fourth word is triumphant. Triumphant describes the feeling of great victory. Critics called the film's finale quietly triumphant, a victory measured in sentences. Our fifth and final word is mentor. A mentor is an experienced person who guides and supports someone. Lionel becomes far more than a therapist to Bertie. He becomes a mentor and a friend. Now, let's talk about how the King's Speech has actually been received since its release. Commercially, the film is one of the great modern success stories. Made for around $15 million, it earned over $414 million worldwide, and became, at the time, the most successful independent British film ever released. Colin Firth himself has said he found the success bewildering. No action, no romance, no spectacle. Just, in his own summary of it, 2 middle-aged men talking in a room. Awards season told the same story. 12 Oscar nominations, the most of its year, and 4 wins, including Best Picture and Best Actor for Firth, whose performance is still cited as one of the decade's finest. Geoffrey Rush and Helena Bonham Carter earned nominations alongside him, and the film swept the BAFTAs. Discussion since has settled into a few well-worn debates. Historians quibble over details, particularly the film's friendly reshaping of Winston Churchill's actual position during the Abdication crisis, while defenders answer that the emotional core, drawn from Lionel Logge's real diaries discovered just before filming, rings true. The film's rating became its own famous story. The therapy scene, where swearing unlocks Bertie's fluency, initially earned adult ratings in some countries, prompting a public argument about context that the film largely won. And among people who stammer, the film holds a special status. It's regularly described as the rare mainstream film to portray a stammer with accuracy and dignity. A legacy ode to screenwriter David Seidler, who accepted his Oscar on behalf of stutterers everywhere. Let's go through formal and informal register from this episode. Formal register creates respectful distance. Titles and surnames: Your Royal Highness, Dr. Logue. Indirect requests like might I ask and would you be so kind. Full unshortened forms and Latin-flavored verbs like renounce, commence, and endeavor. Informal register creates closeness. First names: Bertie, Lionel. Direct phrasing like let's get started and take a seat. Contractions and phrasal verbs like give up, start, and try. The skill is matching register to situation. Formal for interviews, official letters, ceremonies, strangers in authority. Informal for friends, family, and everyday talk. The deeper lesson is the film's own. Register is a choice about relationships. Every time you choose might I over can I, you're saying something about the distance between you and your listener. And keep the film's idiom. To have a voice means having the right to speak and be heard. In your family, your workplace, your country. Try it yourself. Take one simple request, asking someone to wait perhaps, and say it 3 ways: to a close friend, to a colleague, and to someone very senior. Feel how the sentence grows. Let's also go through our 5 bonus vocabulary words from this episode. Eloquent. Fluent, powerful, persuasive speech. The final broadcast redefines what eloquent means. Stammer. A speech difficulty of pauses and repeated sounds. The film treats Bertie's stammer with real dignity. Dignified. Calm, serious, worthy of respect. Firth's performance is heartbreakingly dignified. Triumphant. Feeling of great victory. The ending is quietly, deservedly triumphant. Mentor. An experienced guide and supporter. Lionel is mentor first, therapist second. Try using one of these 5 words yourself, either to describe this film or someone who has guided you in your own life. So, what's the final verdict on The King's Speech? As a piece of English language learning material, it's uniquely valuable. It's a film about speaking English, about how register, confidence, and courage shape every sentence. And its slow, deliberate, beautifully enunciated dialogue is a gift to learners at this level. As a film, it's classic British craftsmanship. 2 towering performances, a script that finds nail-biting tension in conversation alone, and a true story that earns its emotion honestly. The historians will keep their footnotes. Audiences, for 15 years now, have kept the film. Did you enjoy the King's Speech? Let me know in the comments on the video, or get in touch. If this helped you improve your English today, subscribe on YouTube, or follow along on Spotify or Apple Podcasts for more movies reviewed in slow, clear English. Interactive learning materials for this lesson can be found for free in the description.